Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cycle Breaker Parents Unite. I am here again with the second of our series with the wonderful Deirdre Maguire. Deirdre, can you introduce yourself again, please? In your own words this time.
So I am Deirdre Maguire. I am a life coach, author, and mind wellness specialist. I help people get happier because I know that happiness is a skill. I help people to see, then change the thinking process that they are using that's stopping them from getting what they want. And I help them to see who they really are, which is amazing, incredible human beings. And I'm very good at what I do. I've worked with thousands of people all over the world. And but the client that taught me the most was moi. Was me. I was my own toughest client. And but today I'm happy to say I've never been older, I've never been fitter. I'm a CrossFit athlete. I was in the gym this morning at 5 o'clock, doing my burpees. And I've never been older, I've never been fitter, and I've never been happier, because I know that happiness is a skill. And my personal journey has become my professional passion. And I now help people get happier. And we just
the question, what is happiness? Because I have a friend who is a children's mental well-being mentor, and she, everyone has their different take on it, and she avoids the word happiness because she says she kind of talks around it, or she really defines it every time she says it, because she says, I don't want people to be saying, I want to be happy, I want to be happy, as it's the destination, like when I'm happy everything will be sunshine and rainbows, because then that's like, it might be an unrealistic thing for people to work towards, and they don't live in the now, because it's like, I need to be happy, I need to be happy, and then when you're not happy, well, you're a failure at life because you're not happy. And sometimes things come up and they make us feel unhappy, because that's actually the right way to feel about, losing money or losing a business, or, somebody in your family being sick. Actually, it's appropriate to be sad sometimes. So when we think of it in the big sense, what does happiness mean to you?
Well, what I say is everybody wants the same thing, to feel better. You actually want to feel good. That's what you want. But nobody understands what a feeling is. So what exactly is a feeling? So a feeling is actually a chemical response. And so if I say to you, think about your children, okay? So you think the thought in your mind, there's a picture comes into your mind, and there's actually a message sent down very quickly down your spinal cord to release some chemicals in your body, and you feel feelings of joy and, oh, I love them, etc., etc. And we call that chemical release a feeling. Okay, so then if I say clear the screen, and now I want you to think about COVID-19 and, death tolls and et cetera, so you've thought a different thought, chemicals have been released the message has been sent down your spinal cord, chemicals have been released into your body, and we call that chemical response, that feeling, we call it a feeling, and we call it sadness or whatever. So what I teach my people is, when you understand that every time you have a thought, you create a chemical. Okay, now it comes back to the manual we talked about this in the episode 1, that every time you have a thought, you create a chemical. When you understand that there is a manual to how you work, then you can take control more easily. I do not walk about happy all the time. I do not walk about in bliss all the time, but I do know how to manage my emotions. And that's what my work is about. It's about mindset management.
I guess that's interesting, because, you brought up, how do you feel like when you think about COVID, or, I guess with the cycle breaker parents that I work with, when a certain behavior happens, how do you feel? And that's why, you can't help how you feel. It just comes off. You feel a certain way, but then it's how you tune into that. I don't know if you saw when you said about COVID, and I went, because that is my physical response. So you said a thing, I had an association, it caused that chemical reaction, and that caused what I would call a contraction in my, well, I guess in my emotional and my physical self. And now I have a choice to keep holding on to that, or to do things to tune in and go, okay, so where's that coming from? And then to move forward. It's what we do with it. We can't control what comes into our brain and our body. We can control what we do when it's there.
Well, I think if you can understand exactly what's happening. So what happened is I said the word COVID and you actually went into fight or flight. So your body went into the fight or flight response. Why? Because in a New York nanosecond, your mind went to, when I said the word, your mind went to its references, which is the black box recorder, the unconscious mind.
Yep.
Yeah, the black box recorder, the unconscious mind. It made the references because you have pictures and data and statistics and learnings.
I actually did a COVID test this morning so that I could go to the dentist.
There you go. And so you have those references in the unconscious mind, and so you're functioning perfectly. So when you understand what exactly is going on when you have a certain response to a word, then you can become the watcher of your mind. So you are
like the
not
power
your
of
mind.
now.
You are not your mind. You have a mind. I mean, I'm lifting here my phone, and I'm using my phone as an example. So if you imagine the phone is a machine that does things, and if you imagine your mind is a machine that does things, and who you are, the essence of who you are is amazing, incredible. Let me just get this for you. This is who you are, my love. This is who you are. You are a beautiful.
I'll say that. We got cut off there a bit, so let's rewind a little bit to when you were saying about the phone, and then
so what I was saying was that I'm holding up in one hand, I'm holding up an iPhone, and in the other hand I'm holding up a beautiful diamond. And this is what I say: you have a mind. You are not your mind. Your mind is a machine like a phone that you use to serve yourself. And who you are is a beautiful, incredible, amazing diamond. The diamond represents the essence of who you are. You are life. You're actually life. So when you can separate these two, and when you understand how the mind works, basically, every time you have a thought, you create a chemical. So when you think a certain thought, a COVID thought, your body goes down the red route and you go into survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, the sympathetic system is kicked off in your body. It's a process. There's no big mystery to it. The sympathetic system is kicked off. Cortisol and adrenaline are released in your body, and everything goes offline. Okay, so you are essentially in fight or flight. Are you going to fight the bear? Or are you going to flight the bear? Well,
in polyvagal theory, that's what I teach on the turning point, which is my 6 months, the big program that I do for cycle breaker parents, is there's a term for that. It's called a neuroception. And it might be a smell or a sound. It could actually be a sound or a smell for safety, or anything that you pick up, like a cue that you may not even be consciously aware of. Like I often talk about how, like, I hate smoking. Like I really can't stand it. Like I have a real, but there's one smell, and it's woodbines, and they make me think of my granddad. It took me years to work out like how I could say I really, really hate smoking, but when I smell the smell of woodbines, I'm like, oh. It's because I think of my granddad, because it's my neuroception for safety. And then COVID is my neuroception for like the word, or I don't know, seeing a test or whatever it is, anything associated is my neuroception for like.
So this is the work, exactly the work I do, what I call it synoptic connections. So when you're a child and you associate granddad with love, and the mind takes one of the 5 senses, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, and takes any one of the five senses and associates that. So this is why people smoke. Some people smoke because of that, because they have the unconscious association with their parent. So let's get back to this. So here you are, you hear the word COVID, you immediately go into fight or flight, your body goes into survival mode. The cortisol and adrenaline are activated so that you can be on the lookout here, because your life is about safety, it's about survival. It's not about happy stuff. It's about surviving. So that's the first call of the unconscious mind. That's why we call it the intelligent idiot, because it's gone into fight or flight. And so at that point, then the immune system is turned off. Everything unnecessary is turned off. It's kind of like COVID. Everything unnecessary is turned off. The theaters are closed, the cinemas are closed, everything's closed. So everything in your body, your digestive system, your prefrontal cortex.
Yeah, so any creative thinking to get you out of the situation that you're in. This is why people say, like, why do I shout? Why do I shout? And I would say it's another reason why I talk about healing plus skills, because you can have all the skills you like, but if you haven't done some work on your stories and healing your nervous system, when whatever behavior it is triggers you, the trigger will still be there. You can have all the whistles and bells and scripts and things to say and things to do. They will fall out of your brain because you will be in fight or flight. And so you need to learn the skills to, go back up. In polyvagal theory, we talk about going kind of back up the ladder to safety. When you're in safety, you can, like you said, the prefrontal cortex, you can access there was that thing that we talked about. I'm going to use that. And then lo and behold, it works on your child. And it's not just the skill, it's that you have learned how to put yourself in safety. Exactly, so that's what you do.
So that's exactly, and what I've done is, so that probably leads on to what we were going to talk about, is like, what skill would I give to someone today?
Yes, that was the thing, because you have your program, don't you, called the Stress Solution?
I have the program called the Stress Solution System, but I have a really great tip that I can give you right now.
That's what we love.
Okay. So I want you to imagine the acronym STATES. Okay, so essentially what we want to do is change our state. Okay, so the word I've used is STATES, STATES. Okay, so I'll go through it once and then I'll go through it again. So
what I'll do is I'll write it as well in the show notes. I'll write it in the show notes.
Okay.
We can access it again.
Actually, so STATES, ST stands for stop, A stands for air, T stands for thanks, E stands for exhale, and S say the word peace. So let's go back to the beginning. Stop. So what we do when you're angry or you're upset, or like you say, the prefrontal cortex has been turned off, everything's turned off, and you have to get out of that trance. You're actually in a trance. Okay, so you have to get out of it. So how do you get out of it? Well, you can do this by just saying stop. Okay, so when you actually say the word stop, either out loud or in your mind, you are causing a mini trauma in your mind. You're actually getting your mind's attention. So you just go stop, and your mind goes, what? So in that moment, you've broken it.
Yeah, I've heard that as a pattern interrupter, because we're going down that spiral. We go, and you can literally say stop. Well, I know a friend who has one phrase that she says, which is "that's enough," and that for some reason that resonates with her. So she will say "that's enough" to herself, like not to the kids, like to herself in her head. She'll say, "Okay, that's enough." So this is what I teach, Laura. I teach pattern interruption. So here we are. So next time you're bothered but something's annoying you, think of the word states and you go stop, take a deep breath in, because when you have gone into fight or flight, you've actually stopped breathing. And when you take that deep breath in, it's where we get shallow, isn't it?
To the autonomic system. Okay, the autonomic system is your automatic system in your body, and your autonomic system, the lead horse of your autonomic system, right? Imagine you've got this system going, it beats your heart, it grows your hair, it grows your nails, okay, and it sends you into fight or flight, okay, because it's taking care of the dangers. So it's automatically happening, and we are interrupting the system. We are overriding the system. So you've said the word stop, so that's the first part of it. Then you take a deep breath in, because when you're in fight or flight, you stop breathing, okay? So now the lead horse, the breath, is pulling you out of the trance that you're in. It's pattern interrupting and pulling you out. So stop, take a deep breath in, The next letter is T, which stands for thanks, which is gratitude. Okay, so in this moment, you redirect your thinking and think of something you're grateful for. Okay, now this sounds like a lot of work, but it's only because I'm explaining it to you. Because when it actually you do it very quickly. Okay, so when you think about something you're grateful for, you've gone down the different route. Remember I said every time you think a thought, you create a chemical? But if you think of something you're grateful for, my children, my health, I've got money in my bank account, I've got food in my fridge, I've got a roof over my head, you are activating the parasympathetic system, which produces oxytocin, melatonin.
It's interesting. You know, me and you were talking about Tony Robbins before we came on. Yes. I remember listening to a thing from him that said, you cannot exist in a state of gratitude and a state of stress at the same time. They are mutually exclusive. Exactly. So it's like change patterns.
Exactly. And what you're actually doing is taking control. Okay. Yeah. So stop.
That's really empowering to know that we can do that.
Absolutely. People don't know this. So stop, air, take a deep breath in, redirect your thinking, think of something I'm grateful for, my children, my health. Okay. And then exhale, breathe out and say the word peace. And when you say the word peace, you are instructing the mind, the machine. Okay. I'm holding my phone up at this point and saying the mind, you are in charge. You maybe heard this for the first time in your life. I work with 80-year-olds. I have 2 80-year-olds on my course at the minute. I couldn't believe it. And they are so amazing. And they are saying this. I never knew this. I was never taught this.
You know, I don't know if I know you said you were listening to some episodes of the podcast. There is one called It's Never Too Late with it's with Aoife Griffin, who is a somatic healer. So she works with trauma in the body. She's incredible. And she has people in their 60s and 70s. And she said, you know, they're doing this stuff and they've changed their lives in the last few months. Like, a lot of people say like, oh, you know what, I remember doing dyslexia testing when I was 27. And I remember saying, oh, I'm a bit too old to do that. 27. But it's a story of I'm too old.
It's always about, it's so funny. It's always about context. And one of the tricks that I use when somebody says that to me, you see, it's all about perspective and context. So as someone will, typically what will happen is people will do the work with me and then they get relief and they feel better. And then they start to feel sad and say, oh my God, you know, it's too late for me to feel good. And I'll agree with them. I say, yeah, you're right. I do think that. I think you should go back to feeling shitty. I really think you should go back and feel bad, you see, because that's another pattern interruption. And then I'll say, or, you know, but really, are you too old? Like, well, you're not as old as the pyramids, are you? And in that moment, the mind goes to the pyramids, and the pyramids are thousands of years old. So then compared to the pyramids, they're only 70. So they're young. And it was so funny because the other day I was in the gym and I have a personal trainer, and he gave me my stuff back to me. You know, I was working really hard. I was absolutely exhausted. I'd left my soul on the floor and I thought I have nothing else to give. And I just said to him, I'm too old for this. And he said right back to me, he said, Deirdre, you're not as old as the pyramid. And I said, shut up. You know, he was giving me my stuff back to me, you know. So but
you know, that's quite a good lesson, that it's not like some magical unicorn. It's not like, oh, you know, this kind of stuff, like the state stuff, that's for those people who are like, I don't know, enlightened, or, you know, they had a wonderful life or whatever. It's accessible to everybody, and it's okay that sometimes it's harder and sometimes it comes easier. It changes as you go, and all of us need a reminder sometimes. You know, you need help. Well, I need help. You just helped me with my stories about being a mom, and it was. We all need help sometimes.
We all do. I need help, and so that's why we're in this job. You know, originally that's why we're in it, because we want to teach the way we never were taught. We want to learn. We want to share what we never had. And, you know, we know that. And so there are two things. One is use the word states and think about it. You know, all you do is go stop, take a deep breath in, think of something I'm grateful for. Now, you know, it's so funny. And then exhale and say the word peace. When you say the word peace, you are sending the instruction to your mind, and your mind is the great Googler. It will look for peace for you. You know, it will naturally do that. It naturally does it. You know, how often have you been, you know, say you and I are having a discussion and we're trying to think of a word and we can't think of the word, or you're talking about, I can't think of it. I can't think of the word. Or like typically here in Ireland, we're talking about people, we're talking about relatives. And they say, you know your man and his wife died, and then you remember they had those children, and then they sold the house and the farm of land was given away, and then the tractor fell off and the flat wheel and la 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 la, and you can't think of who it is. You can't think of who
Irish
it is.
family, and it's so
I know, that's how we do it. And then the next day you're driving along there and you go, Paddy Murphy, that's his name, right? So that's how the mind works. The mind is,
when it comes up, it's like 2 a.m, and it's like, that's the book. Yeah,
you sit bolt upright in the bed and go, oh my God, that is it. Why? So when you know how your mind works, then you get clever. This is the manual to the mind. This is what I give people. So when you know that, and you know that the mind is your servant, and you say the word peace, the mind will ultimately come to peace. Now, if you're having a really bad day, the children have written all over the walls, and then they've cut their hair. I saw this video the other day with the children, you know, this child, they'd shaved their head, they'd found the razor, shaved their head, they've done this, they've done that, and you're standing there going, and Deirdre, you want me to say the word states? You want me to, you know, what? You think I'm going to do the word states? And the thing about it is, it will come into your head and you will have the choice. And that's where the challenge is. Because in that moment, you are in charge. And if you want to stay angry and go down what I call the red route, if you want to go down the red route and, you know, get the cortisol.
Sometimes it's easier. Sometimes it's easier to go. This is back to the first podcast we did about, you know, about the underlying beliefs and our underlying patterns and why we repeat them. I say sometimes it's easier to go down that path. Actually, often at the start of this, you know, this work and this journey of growth and behavior change, it's easier to go down the path more traveled than it is to try and change, even if sometimes, especially if the change is actually better and we know it is. The familiar is the familiar.
Yeah. So what I would say to that, rather than it being easier, it's actually familiar. It's more
it's safer.
Familiar. That's what I do. That's why. And the reason you do that is because that's what you saw. Okay. So we copy what we saw. So we had an angry parent, and then we're good at getting angry. We're very good at it.
Yeah.
So
or sometimes it's the shut off parent that, you know, because we're obviously, this is about cycle breaker parents, and this is why I invited you on, because everything you say is so beautiful and it's so applicable to cycle breaker parents as well, that it's whatever pattern it was. So I think it was the last episode we were talking about, some people, you know, they have the big T trauma of the, you know, the shouty, scary parent. Yeah. And that's kind of more obvious in a way. It's certainly easier to imagine, should we say. But then there's also there's other patterns of people who said, you know, oh, I grew up in an okay household, but, you know, if I didn't do what I was asked to do, I was completely frozen out. And I felt like like less than, or, you know, I felt like because I was loud and my sister was quiet, that they preferred her over me. And we will follow those patterns, not because we want to, because that's what the brain does. And because that's what's familiar. And my work is about finding what the pattern is, and I can find it quite quickly. I can ask 3 questions and find it, and cut to the core of it. And that's what I love about my work. I go to the root of the problem. We do not sit and talk about the traumas. We do not sit and talk about them, but we do release them, because memories are recorded information from a distorted point of view. So you and I both have those memories of, you know, an angry parent, a drunken parent, and but it is recorded from the perspective of the child. And it's recorded from a distorted point of view. You're not the child now. Now you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, but it's kind of like it's clogged. It's like a clogged pipe. The unconscious mind has held onto it to keep us safe. And so long it's become truth. And then when we actually examine it, we go, oh, it's not truth. That was what I thought when I was 6. Yes,
or the opposite, where, I mean, I was working with a client the other day and he was minimizing. You know, he was beaten, he was punished, and he was beaten very badly. And he said to me, but sure, and how many times have you heard this? But sure, it didn't do me any harm. And you know, I didn't do me any harm. It was all right. And you have a misguided loyalty to the system, to the parent, whoever. So what I will
we
do,
are hardwired as mammals to be loyal to and to seek comfort from our parents, and that's actually where a lot of the real deep trauma comes from, because we're wired to go towards these parents, but when the parents are scary, because the parents have their own issues, that, like you said, from a distorted, that position of the 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, it's like, oh, that person is really scary. But certainly for me as the child, we talked about of an alcoholic, I can now in my 30s, and it honestly took until he took his own life when I was in my 20s for me to realize truly realize it wasn't anything that I had done as a child. It was because he had demons, and the demons beat him. I know other people conceptualize it in different ways, but it took until then. And I literally remember putting a flower on his grave at the funeral and thinking, I feel sadness and pity and actually love for probably the first time in a long time, because you had issues. And it was, and like after that, everything seemed to change. I mean, it's a horrible that was the point, that was the turning point. You said the lowest point is your turning point. We had a similar experience that was the point where I was like, it wasn't me. I wasn't unworthy of love. I had a dad who had issues. And then
so what I would say, one of the things that I do, because with a lot of parents who are still alive, parents don't need to die for you to make peace with this. Which is a very important
point. That's a good message too. Very
absolutely. That if I said to you now, Laura, do you have any good memories with your dad? Do you have any times that you remember that were good?
Yeah, there's a few, not as many as the other way around. There are a few flashbulb special memories, but they for me, with the knowledge I have and the people I work with now, they were for me the times when I, reflecting on it as an adult, I know that he must have been in a safe place and been feeling strong and good. So it makes them special.
So what I ask you to do then, this is what I ask my clients to do, is really go to that memory and go to that was a moment when he was free to be able to love you the way he would like to. And again, it's always about perspective. And when one of the things that I will say to a client is, I want you to imagine your dad, and he's and your mum, and they're at the dressing up box. Have you ever seen kids, the little girls, and they're clomping about in their mummy's shoes?
I have one.
Okay. So the little boy has a hat on, and it's too big for him, and a jacket, and he has a shirt and tie. And I want you to imagine your parents like that, because they're actually children in a grown-up body, and that they had hurts and pains in the past. And what my work is about doing, and I do it very successfully, is where we can make peace with the parent, because and this is a very, very critical part of this work, the work that I do. The thought of your father is not your father. So if I say to you, the thought of your father in your head is not your father, because your father's dead. The thought of my father in my head is not my father. The thought of my father in my head is me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like the conglomerate of all the memories and what we took. Yeah.
So when you understand that, then you can actually, if your dad had all the blessings that we have, if he had the stress solution system, if he had your system.
Yeah, because of course they didn't have that until, I guess, relatively recently, like in the last 20, 25 years.
So if your dad had all those resources available to him that we are privileged to have, how would he have been different?
Yeah.
And when you can allow that parent to come alive in your mind, and then we integrate that, and this is part of the work that I do, that we allow your dad to be here, and now he's at peace. and he can love you the way he would like to love you. And he wraps his arms around you and he gives you a hug and he whispers something very beautiful that's private between you and your dad in your mind. Okay. And that is, then you take your dad into your heart and you keep the love. You keep the love and let the rest go. And when you can do that.
And like you said, that I think when I do a similar book, we all have our own different methods, like the inner child healing, I guess, in a sense, as part of that. It's I know they call it like forming a coherent narrative of because the 6-year-old is like, oh, you're in a good mood today, that's great. Oh, you're drunk today. Or they don't even realize about alcohol that it exists when you're 5, do you? Just like scary, not scary, scary. And it's confusing. And that's why the narrative is so messed up as you go older, as you grow. But then you can form that coherent narrative, where you see that as a person with their issues and all of that.
Yeah.
But also, like you said, that it doesn't take that your parent has to die for that to happen. Some of us, it ends up like that, but you can do that inner child healing. You can do that forming a narrative, and it's not disrespectful to your parent, even if they're alive. Like some people are really resistant to that, aren't they? Because it's like, oh, but how? Because they tried their best, and they maybe did try their best, and sometimes missed the point, and that's okay. You still get to heal. You still get to do the work, and you don't have to tell them. There's no way that you doing your own healing impacts somebody else badly. Like, you don't have to tell them. You don't have to say, I came out with this wound and I never felt listened to because you had issues. And you don't have to say it. It's just that we do it for ourselves, don't we? It's not.
Well, again,
that's disrespectful to heal.
And it's also what, that's a whole other podcast, is talking about shame, where you have been shamed into not feeling your feelings. So you defend it and you say, look, it was okay. It wasn't that bad. And I love my parents and I don't want to talk about it, but something, it's killing you. It's absolutely robbing you of your life. The longer you stay loyal to that system inside your mind, that's how people get cancer. I got cancer. That's how people, get ill. I know
Gabor Mate talked about that, didn't he? And he's for anybody who doesn't know Gabor Mate, definitely give him a Google. He just did an amazing film that came out this year called The Wisdom of Trauma, and he talks about how holding on to trauma and either not having the skills and being aware, or kind of refusing to let it go, because again, you're saying it's safe, it's familiar, it's what our subconscious wants us to do, can manifest itself in the body and make us sick.
Absolutely.
There's actually quite a lot of research. It sounds woo, but there's a lot of research.
I've worked with thousands of people and I've seen it where people, I remember one time actually working with a woman, and I was in Canada, I was traveling and I was at a seminar, and this woman, I was doing private sessions, and this woman was distraught and she couldn't walk. They literally carried her into the hotel room and she had a walking stick with her. She was in so much pain. And I started to do the work, and I know the questions to ask to get to the core of it. And the core of it was that this woman was in her 70s, and when she was 16, she was pregnant. And her 15-year-old sister announced that she was pregnant the week after. And so there were 2 girls in the same house were pregnant. So the older girl, she knew that there couldn't be 2 babies in the house. So she made the decision to give her baby up. So when it came the time to have her baby, she went across the other side of Toronto, and the baby was given up for adoption, and she never forgot the baby. So she went on in her life and she got married. She had 3 children, but she never forgot this first baby. And she felt so guilty that she had given the baby up. And back in the day, they didn't have the same resources that they have today. And she went, when she knew the child would be 18, she went to look for the child, and they didn't have the right records, and she didn't find her son. So this had played on her all her life. She was guilty.
Entire life.
So all of that. So eventually it crippled her. She was carrying it on her back. So she couldn't walk with the pain in her back. So we started to release, which is what I say my work is about. It's about releasing. So we started to release and release and release the pain, the shame, the guilt, the trauma, and everything that she had carried for all those years. And the woman literally walked out of the hotel room. She walked. I thought, my God, it was
probably about 5 years ago, I would have been like, wow, I've heard it so many times.
So many
times that, like I said, years ago, I probably wouldn't have believed that. I would have been like, wow,
exactly.
That's inflation. But then when you actually get into the world of trauma and physical trauma and research onto it, this does happen. Like, people's trauma cripples them, and releasing it changes lives. And like you said, no matter what age.
Absolutely.
No matter what age.
No matter what age. And I've seen it so many times. And when I'm sitting here with a client and they start to talk and they've got, they tell me they've got this, they've got irritable bowel, or they've got this, and I go, okay. And I will look, I have a reference book that I look up, and I read out. It's a book written by Ina Segal, INNESEGAL.
And we'll put it in the show notes. I will watch it.
The secret language of the body, and I'll check if that's the right name, but I'll give it to you later. And it's my reference book, and I just read out. They think I'm a genius because I read this book and I say, okay, so it's like lower back pain, or irritable bowel, or what's all that other one, fibromyalgia, or rheumatism's anger, cancer's anger, lungs is grief. They're all different things, and they can't breathe. And so I'll say, and I read out this piece, and they go, you're reading my mind. That is exactly how I am. That is exactly. And then we start to do the releasing work, and then the body heals, because the body keeps the score. That's another book.
Yeah, that's another. Oh, that's an incredible. That's what I was thinking of. There's also another one called Louise Hay, from Louise Hay, the late Louise Hay, which is, I can't remember exactly what that's called, but it's exactly the same. It's something like You Can Heal Your Body. I'm sure. I think that might be the exact title. But again, we'll put them all in the show notes, and I think this is going to become a blog post because it's so awesome. Oh, thank you so much. I know we've gone. So we haven't gone off topic, we've just looked at it from 2 different angles, haven't we? So for people who are listening to this is how I always like to round it up. For people who are listening to this and they're like, whoa, that is me. Starting point is in the moment states. I often recommend that people, and I have this, I won't turn the laptop around because my house is a mess, but although that's an act of feminism, isn't it? Look at my messy house. Everyone has it. I have stuff like Post-it notes and sometimes photocopies. I have photocopies of my own sheets that I give to clients on my wall because I use them.
Absolutely.
And in that moment, you're saying in that moment, the whole prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, it falls out of your ears because it's shut off because it's not needed in fight or flight. And so having it on the wall might well be, and that's why have you ever seen my tattoo? It's oxytocin. It's the hormone of love and trust.
Beautiful.
That's why I always have it, to remind myself that in any moment, I guess it's like you move to gratitude. I do a move to love. What is the love? What is the love or above? That thing. Have a think.
What I tell my clients, are you going red or are you going green?
Yes,
okay, am I going red or am I going green?
On your wall, if that helps, whatever helps you. So so in the moment states, longer term, what's your advice?
Long term is go see somebody and do the work.
Yeah, pretty much.
Go see somebody, whether it's me or whether it's Laura or whoever it is. Get started.
It sounds tricky, like kind of saying like go see someone. We've seen people. I still see.
That's how I got to be as good as what I am. And
it's not as saying come and work with us. We want clients. I mean, obviously you're welcome to work with us, and yes, of course we do want clients. It's our business, but it's about the message, and it's about we don't really care who you work with. If you can try and do it yourself. You can listen to podcasts. You can try states. You can explore different things that other people do as well. Working with somebody will change your life because they will support you they'll hold your hand and support you through.
Well, I'm sure because of the type of podcast this is, that people who are here are interested in being parents. And what if, the money that you spend on Christmas presents for kids, and they don't care anyway, they just play with the boxes, they don't need the stuff. And you use the money, if money was an issue, for example, if it was, that you invested, this is a real investment in your children. When you invest in you, if you can't do it for yourself, and a lot of people, I work with a lot of people, and they say they don't get to my door till life's unmanageable, and they're right at the end of it. And then they say, so what I say is, if you can't do it for yourself, because your own sense of self is so battered about, use your children as the leverage. Say, well, I'm not important, but I'll do it for my kids. And
yeah, and then
you
along
will
the journey, you realize that you're important. But if the first step is because I have similar that not most, a lot of people end up coming to me because they're like, I've been following you for a while, and I've been thinking about it, and it's been percolating, and I completely lost my mind at my kids last week, and now I know I need help. And and it's the same. I didn't reach out for help until I reached the rock bottom, which is a different podcast. And many of us, like you say, like sometimes the lowest point is the turning point, because we're humans. That's how we work, isn't it?
Yeah, and so, yes, Wayne Dyer quotes, "The pain pushes till the vision pulls," and that's exactly what happens. The pain pushes you till the vision pulls, but you don't need to get to that stage. But you probably won't. People don't do it. They'll keep on doing the same old.
We'll keep sharing our message, doing our podcast, and I hope that people get that inkling and go, "I don't want to go there." But maybe a few of them do. Maybe. And if it gets to that point, we're here. That's the main message, isn't it?
Perfect.
Thank you so much. I want to just tell everyone, because I know a lot of people listen to this on the go. I certainly tend to listen to podcasts in one ear whilst I'm washing up and things. All of our links. So if you want to follow Deirdre, or there was a book that we recommended and you're like, oh yeah, that one. It's all going to be in the show notes, so you don't need to go back and rewind it and listen. It's all
okay. Yeah. Good one.
Thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you, my love. Thank you for having me. I love sharing this time with you. It's great to see you, and I'll see you on the next one.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.